welcome everyone who is here. I know we had many more people signed up, but we're going to go ahead and get started because we are on a timeline. This is Up, an IRA, bringing clean energy to all new heights. This is going to be a webinar that we are doing from Renew Missouri. For those of you on here who are attorneys, do note that we are going to be giving 1.8 hours of CLE credit for Missouri attorneys and 1.5 hours for Kansas attorneys. And if you wonder what the difference is, the answer is, well, Kansas just makes everything more difficult when you're an attorney there. So I can't explain it otherwise. And as Tori also said, if you have any questions, and Cheryl Markham has never seen me in a tie. I don't think that's true. I think she has probably seen me at the legislature where I've had to wear a suit. So I do wear one there because I believe that is the dress code. But yes, I am wearing a tie outside of the Capitol building. So please write your questions down. Tori Cheatham, who you should be able to see. She is our outreach and education director, because she just got that promotion out of our St. Louis office. She is going to be running the slides today, and she's going to be, kind of moderating comments, questions, and that sort of thing. So feel free to ask those questions as we go along. Again, as I said, if there are things that you are wanting to keep up on or need to make notes for, we are going to be sending out this PowerPoint to anyone that we have the email address for, which should be everybody who signed up through Eventbrite. Isn't that right, Tori?
That's correct.
Okay, so are we ready to do the full screen? Or is this what it's going to look like?
Is it not full screen?
I'm looking at your screen and I see you and I see the presentation. Actually, no, I think maybe I'm doing it wrong. Hold on a second. No, that's not it. Well, anyway, it's fine because I can see the presentation. So can you go to the next slide?
Sure.
Okay, so this is our agenda today, the introduction. We are also going to be talking about, what we're here to talk about is the Inflation Reduction Act and kind of the overview of that. Part of that is going to get into more specific topics such as the Greenhouse Gas Reduction Fund, which is going to be the money that is going to be available to state, local, and tribal governments to fund projects at the local level. And that would include the Missouri Energy Infrastructure Bank, which we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about. We are going to talk a little bit also about the rural electric co-op funding and opportunities available to our rural electric cooperative friends here in Missouri. We are not going to talk about that too much. We are intending to have another free webinar here in the next month or so on that particular subject. We are also going to be talking mainly about residential rebates and tax credits. That is a big thrust of this bill, what it's going to be able to do to affect individual behavior. So we're going to be talking about that, as well as how that will have an impact on drivers who are trying to take advantage of vehicle tax credits. And how that's going to affect your ability to shop for and to be able to buy an electric vehicle. And then finally, we're going to end by talking about how to get ready for the IRA, which there still are admittedly a lot of question marks about. And so it is going to largely just be about us trying to tell you what you should expect. And hopefully we will be able to continue giving out more information to the public about what is available as we go along. Next slide, please. Yes, but who are we? We are Renew Missouri. We are a 501c3. We were founded in 2006. This is now our, oh my gosh, this is our 17th year in existence, which is really pretty amazing. And for that whole time, we have worked primarily on clean energy access, that is either renewable energy or energy efficiency. We largely do that before the Public Service Commission, which is the regulatory body in Jefferson City that oversees privately owned utilities like Ameren, like Liberty Empire, like Evergy, as far as electric providers go. We also are doing a lot of work with rural electric cooperative member owners right now. We are trying to really expand our work into that area because that is That is not as regulated at the state level, so that is a little tougher. But we also work with municipal utilities such as city utilities, Columbia Water and Light, Independence Power and Light, and Kirkwood Municipal Utilities. Those are the four big ones. But we also do spend some time in the Capitol right now. The legislative session is going on. The 2023 legislative session is going on. So we do advocate for legislation there. We advocate against legislation in some cases, but we do work with lawmakers and with other parties who are engaged in that process. That is particularly important because of how much of what the Public Service Commission does is ultimately guided by the legislature itself. Next slide, please. And there's me. I'm James Owen. I'm the executive director of Renew Missouri. I have the honor and pleasure of getting to lead this team every day in what we do. We are a very small organization, but we certainly box over our weight, as they say. We certainly do a lot more work than our size would suggest. And I've been doing this job for almost 6 years. Prior to that, I was public counsel for the state of Missouri. That means I was the ratepayer advocate for the state. I worked for the state government in other capacities. Before that, I had served as an associate circuit judge in Webster County, which is down in Southwest Missouri. And that's also where I had been in private practice as an attorney for about, how long did I do that? 7 years, 7 years, 8 years, something like that. And that is my background. Yes, I am, contrary to the image of some clean energy advocates, I am a farm kid. I am from the country. And I think that even drives me further to care about these issues because I do care so much about, making sure our air is clean and our soil is clean and our water is safe to drink. Next slide, please. Okay, so enough about me. Let's talk about the Inflation Reduction Act. And before we kind of get into all of the details here, I'm going to warn you in advance that some of these numbers, we're going to be throwing out a lot of big numbers, and some of these numbers might look a little different. Some of these numbers might not add up. And the reason that is the case is because in some instances, we did have to round up or round down in order for these numbers to make sense. So if things don't seem to add up to 100%, if you're looking at them, just know it's not because we actually did spend quite a bit of time trying to get all of that to work more effectively, but in reality is that these numbers are really long because we're talking about a lot of money. And so in order for it to be condensed into a PowerPoint presentation, we wanted to make sure that we made that look as concise as possible. So call me out on my math, just know in advance that's what it's about. Okay, so the IRA. This is about $499 billion in new spending and tax breaks that aim to boost clean energy and reduce healthcare costs and increase tax revenue. The whole point of this is to fund certain initiatives that the U.S. Congress saw fit, and also at the same time offering a number of deficit reducing measures that was important to some of the parties that were on the fence on whether to support this or not, including Senator Joe Manchin, who you see here in that photo. What's important to note is that while this Inflation Reduction Act kind of moved somewhat quickly when it first got announced in the summer of 2022, it was in July of 2022 when it was announced a deal was reached on this, and then it was eventually signed into law by President Joe Biden on August 16th. But a lot of these provisions, a lot of these clean energy provisions had been in other iterations of other legislation. Most recently, prior to the IRA, a lot of these clean energy initiatives were in a bill called Build Back Better. That was a bill that had a lot of social initiatives in it, but that was ultimately determined that the Senate did not have the votes to pass. And there were even some bills, even some portions of the IRA, such as the narrow section involving rural electric cooperatives that we're going to talk about here in a minute, that were even included in the COVID relief fund packages that had been contemplated as far back as 2020. So these so these provisions have had kind of a history, and they've kind of been around for a while. And so while this particular bill moved fast, the history is still there, that it took several years, and it took a lot of hours and a lot of effort by a lot of different groups, a lot of different individuals who are working on all these things. So it was very much a very hard fought effort. But this, in addition to the deficit reduction issues, there were going to be issues involving, as far as the mission goes of it, to reduce the carbon emissions that our country emits, lowering healthcare costs, funding the IRS to add more agents in order to do more enforcement to collect more taxes, and to improve taxpayer compliance. So so while clean energy advocates talk a lot about the IRA as a clean energy method, there's a lot else to it, but we won't get into any of that because I don't know anything about it. So next slide, please. Okay, so what we're trying to show here is what this is calculated to have an impact on as far as U.S. greenhouse gas emissions. You can see there that that these are all kind of have a baseline set at 2005, and we're dealing with 2005 numbers as far as like what we're trying to reduce. According to this source, where we got this information, current policy, you can see there is in blue, but the Inflation Reduction Act has the potential to have a reduction of anywhere from 31% to 44% of greenhouse gas emissions that we emit in this country. And you can see the net millions metric tons of CO2 over there, with this going over to 2030. Now, we also had to note that the U.S.'s participation in the Paris Climate Agreement has our 2030 targets at at a much more substantial reduction than what this is going to get us at. But again, these are all just kind of estimates. We are going to have to see how effective some of these programs are, but this is what has been calculated. So that's where we got that number. Next slide, please. Thank you. And so when you look at that 499 billion, and you want to look at specifically what we're talking about as far as energy and climate, we are looking at 391 billion, give or take. You're going to see some numbers that say 392. That's where that number gets rounded up. 391 is where it gets rounded down. That is going to not just be that is not just going to be a matter of like how much money we're putting into this, but also like how there are going to be spending and tax breaks, and hopefully there's going to be revenue generated as a result of some of this activity, in addition to the rebates and the credits that are going to be given. So there's all kind of it's all kind of like factoring in how much of this is going to be part deficit reduction, how much of this is going to be actual spending. It's all very complicated. Just know that this is a significant investment in energy and climate, probably the most significant energy and climate investment this country has ever made, probably ever will make for the foreseeable future. Next slide, please. So yeah, and you can see with that energy and climate how that is broken down. And it's not just in spending, it is going to be in tax credits. You can see the clean energy tax credits there, $161 billion. Ameren, Missouri, the largest electric investor-owned utility in the state, announced after this bill passed that they believed that with the investments they were making in wind and solar, because Ameren has been making a lot of significant investments into those energy sources, that they were looking at potential tax credit savings of $1.2 billion. Not insignificant, enough to where it would be my hope anyway that that company would go and potentially seek some sort of rate reduction with the Public Service Commission that regulates how their rates are raised or lowered. Quite simply, when a utility company comes into the Public Service Commission to get a rate adjustment, part of that is estimated tax costs, and they are using the current tax rate in order to figure out what that is going to be in the future. And so that is, or what they've already had to pay. And so if there's going to be tax credits that they would get reimbursed for any like previous investments they've made, one would hope that they would be able to pass that on to their customers. When in 2017, when the Republican Congress, when President Trump filed a tax cut, Ameren was able to go seek a rate reduction before the Public Service Commission. We would hope that would be the case here as well. So that's going to, while that's something we're talking about as far as big, big companies, big multi-billion dollar entities, and that's not going to be the focus of this presentation, but that is something that is going to be factoring into that number. Also, air pollution, hazardous materials, transportation and infrastructure, another 40 billion. Clean energy incentives for individuals, that's 37 billion. Clean manufacturing tax credits, another thing we're going to be talking about, another 37 billion. Clean fuel and vehicle tax credits, those are those EVs that we were discussing, 36 billion. Conservation, rural development and forestry, 35 billion. That building efficiency, electrification, transmission, industrial DOE grants and loans, at 27 billion. That's specifically to the greenhouse gas reduction fund that we'll be talking about a little more detail here in a bit. And then just kind of another catch-all of 18 billion. So that is kind of what the congressional offices have estimated where a lot of this money is anticipated to go. Next slide, please. Right. So let's talk a little bit about that greenhouse gas reduction fund that I just mentioned. This is kind of largely talking about the ability to fund either through low interest loans, no interest loans, or forgivable loans that could be converted into grants. The idea would be that this money was going to be going to fund and to provide capital for projects and programs that might not necessarily have access to available capital through traditional means, and to be able to have this money set aside for those kind of investments. As you can see, these are largely going to be anticipated to go to state governments, municipalities, which we also would factor in as being county governments as well as tribal governments. Now, there's this money set aside specifically for zero emission technologies, general assistance, low income and disadvantaged communities, as well as the administrative costs here. Now, there's kind of a couple of different ways of that we are anticipating this is going to go. Most people are assuming that this money is going to be allocated directly to states, directly to cities, directly to counties, even in some cases to private entities that are going to be establishing green banks. That's this term it's kind of a catch-all for any kind of entity that provides financing or capital for clean energy projects, for clean technology. There are several of those set up around the country. You can go look at states like let's say Colorado or Maryland or Ohio. A lot of them already have this kind of structure set up where they are providing specific money for specific projects. Most of that at this point is not coming from the federal government. A lot of it is coming from assessments that have been issued to utility companies to pay into those funds. Sometimes those are other assessments from other entities that are considered, they've kind of done this as part of some sort of agreement to remedy some sort of larger pollution issue. Sometimes it's state funds, sometimes it's private funds. So that is where these existing banks are getting their capital. What this would potentially advocate for would be to have even more of that money go into those kind of entities and make those available to the public. Now there is some talk, and so this isn't really fully settled yet, and we're going to talk about, like, there's a lot of uncertainty still about a lot of these provisions, that it could be that the EPA, the Environmental Protection Agency, which has been charged with handling this greenhouse gas reduction fund, might just set up its own green bank, not send any of this money directly to the states, and just administer it directly. there is some possibility that these won't go to these state or local entities. But we don't know that yet. And it would make sense for these to go to states because, as you can see, as an example, the low income and disadvantaged communities funding that where they would be able to get direct investments to help disadvantaged communities, either through energy efficiency upgrades or, maybe even doing some sort of low income community solar projects. That's things that are already being administered by the states already. Most of what the Division of Energy is administering to local action agencies, community action agencies, is coming from federal dollars, and it's just being administered at the state level. It would make sense that excuse me, that would be the same here as well, but we don't know that for sure yet. And also, I mean, those administrative costs could be held at a federal organization instead of being spread out among different entities, including, next slide, please, a potential Missouri Energy Infrastructure Bank. This is something that Renew Missouri has been working with the Parson administration on for a couple of years. We have been interested in seeing a statewide bank get created. We were calling it a green bank because of political perception. One of the ideas that we put forward as an example for what the state could follow was out of Rhode Island, which they call their bank an infrastructure bank. And I think that seemed more palpable to the folks that are in charge of our government right now. Ultimately, it doesn't matter what we call it. If the money is being earmarked or is being allocated for a specific purpose, it's got to be used for that specific purpose, no matter what we call this entity. But the Department of Natural Resources houses a group called the Missouri Environmental Improvement and Energy Resources Authority. That is the bonding authority for DNR. They are already able to provide financing and funding for specific projects right now. Brownfield remediation is an example of that. Energy efficiency projects at a certain level are examples of that. They are the office that is charged with kind of creating this as a receptacle. I can tell you that one of the things that they're hoping they are going to be able to do, instead of seeking additional statutory authority for this from the Missouri legislature, is they want to use what is called the Energy Futures Fund, which is already something set up by statute that's administered by the state treasury. That is ultimately overseen by the Department of Natural Resources, where public and private funding for energy projects can already go. And so they believe, or there is a belief by the leadership there, that that's something they can do without having to go get authority for an infrastructure bank. I think they might be right. I think if you go and look at that statute, it is very possible they're able to do that. So the EIRA recently submitted a request for proposals because they are wanting to see what potential projects and programs are out there that could be used, that could use this money. They're trying to get ideas. They want to be able to put together a proposal to the EPA using some of the information they are given from this RFP process in order to say, yes, there is a need for this, there is a demand for this in Missouri, and we are wanting to see if we can get X amount of money out of this $27 billion, as well as money to help administer this fund in order to, I think they're just wanting to have that for planning purposes. That is a little different than the RFI that was issued from the Division of Energy back in 2021 that was essentially seeking the same thing. This is asking for a little bit different information with a little more specificity as to what this money is going to be used for. So let's see, we've got some questions here.
Yeah, I was just working on typing in the chat, but James, if you want to address them now, that's fine.
Okay.
Do you want to do it? Should I just answer in the chat or?
Yeah, well, one of these is kind of off topic, so I'm going to save that for the end. And then the other one is, there a map of qualifying brownfield sites in Missouri? My answer to that is, I would encourage, I think
there is.
There is?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I was going to say just
probably on the US website. Or
Yeah, just go to the
Mhm.
EIRA website or go call them and they should be able to know if there's anything there. So, okay. So in regards to, I'm just going to address the other thing about the wind farms with endangered bats or high prairie. As far as like how we have looked at remedying that situation, I mean, like ultimately we are relying on federal and state regulations on protection of wildlife mitigation and that sort of thing, and making sure that not only are those being followed, but also that these companies are going above and beyond what the federal and state regulations are to make sure that those are being protected. I mean, certainly, I think that opponents of wind overstate the concerns of that. I mean, I know that you can look at the fact that there's a couple 100,000 birds a year killed, and just generally kind of because bats are not birds. I understand that, but wind farms, dealing with any kind of winged creatures, I think that argument gets used by anti-renewable energy individuals, but certainly it is a concern, and addressing that is a concern. So I think that those are all being followed, and every time they come up in a case, we want to make sure that we are going above and beyond what the federal and state regulations are. And Cheryl, in regards to whether or not this is applied to nonprofits, I mean, certainly I think that if there are nonprofits that are interested in receiving this kind of funding, and that you could make the argument that a nonprofit like a church would have issues trying to receive that capital through traditional means. I certainly think that would be something that the EIRA would be interested in hearing, and I think they would be very receptive to hearing about religious entities needing access to this in order to make their operations more efficient. So certainly, if anybody with your group wants to talk that over, I'm happy to do it. I would note, I think if you click on that link when we send it to you, these requests for proposals are due on February 28th. So we're looking at, about 2.5 weeks from now, a little over 2.5 weeks from now. So that's a good question. Next slide, please. Oh, look, and Bill Rush, thank you for that information. Kansas City, Missouri has a brownfields coordinator. Yeah, I would imagine that probably St. Louis County, City of Springfield, they all probably have that. If you're looking at outside of the, if you're looking outside of those larger metropolitan areas, I'd say EIRA is the place you'd want to look. Okay. Now, another issue that we are wanting to talk about briefly, although I say briefly, I don't know if that last part was that brief or not. You be the judge. This is something very specific that Renew Missouri was working on. This is something that Renew Missouri had worked on since June of 2020. So rural electric cooperatives, very different, very distinctive in how they are operated and managed. There are about 43 distributive rural electric cooperatives around the state. They distribute power to their customers. They are hooked in to 7 generation and transmission organizations around the state that generate and transmit that power. And that power is almost often, always supplied by Associated Electric, based out of Springfield, which is the power supplier for all of those co-ops. They are very self-contained. AECI owns and operates all of their, almost all of their energy sources, including 2 coal plants, one in northern Missouri and one in the Boot Heel. They are getting pretty old. They are getting to where they are not having they're having some capacity issues. But one of the problems is that a lot of those plants were built using federally backed money from the USDA, specifically the Rural Utility Service Office. And so with that debt still on those plants, they are unable to even retire what are considered to be coal plants that are having difficulty keeping up. So with that said, part of what is in the IRA is about $10 billion, $9.7 billion, that is going to be available voluntarily to co-ops around the country, that will allow them to get some form of forgivable grants, as long as they are able to follow the plan that they've submitted to the USDA, that they will be able to shut down. They will be able to be able to forgive that debt and invest in clean energy projects. And that investment is available to power suppliers. They can only get at most $970 million of that. They have capped what each co-op would be able to do, because I mean, right now there are some co-ops around the country that do want this money. They have things that they want to shut down. They do have investments they want to make. Tri-State Electric out of New Mexico and Colorado, if it were up to them, would probably take all of this money. They probably have about $9.7 billion in upgrades they want to make. But the USDA doesn't want it just going to Tri-State. So they're just trying to cap it at that. So right now, the rural electric cooperatives in Missouri have said they're not necessarily interested in this money. We are trying to get them to change their mind on that. I think that there is real opportunities for the co-ops here to do that. And so that is, I'm hoping that we will have a more in-depth conversation about that here in the next month or so, talking about that issue. Next slide, please. But we'll keep talking about it anyway. I forgot we had a second slide about it. But yeah, this would make money available for renewable energy investments. 50% of this loan would be forgivable. And the thing is, this is also one of those things where one of the other things that the IRA is doing, and I think this actually might also be applicable to Cheryl's question as well. Okay, and I saw the other anonymous comment. I will address all that here in a minute. Maybe Tori remind me to ding me on that towards the end. Rural electric cooperatives are nonprofits. By federal statute, they are deemed nonprofits. Churches are nonprofits, obviously. There are a lot of different nonprofits that have a physical structure as their main source of services. I think about animal shelters, domestic violence centers, food banks, etc. There are a number of places where they would love. Daycares is another example. My daughter goes to a daycare that's a 501c3. There are a number of organizations that would love to be able to take advantage of having solar on the rooftop, where they're able to get access to clean energy. But there are generally tax credits available for that, but tax credits don't do you any good if you don't pay taxes, if you are a non-taxable entity. And that's not just nonprofits, that's also municipalities, that's also county governments as well. So what this hopes to do is to convert what the value of those tax credits would be in order to get direct investments and direct payback to nonprofits or non-taxable entities. And so they can make those investments. That is something that is an option now. And we will get into that a little more too, but some of this money will be available in some form of tax credits. It's going to be available to rural electric cooperatives, because again, where Ameren can talk about the tax benefit they're receiving from the IRA, that's not something that a rural electric cooperative can have in mind. They cannot consider that because they don't pay taxes, because they are a nonprofit. But it has been estimated by the Rural Power Coalition, which, by the way, is a group that Renew Missouri is a founding member of and we're a group of, that we've been able to crunch numbers and determine that about 90,000 rural jobs could be created over the next 10 years due to this investment. So we are hopeful that Associated Electric is able to take advantage of that. Next slide, please. Okay, so now here's where this is the brass tacks part, okay? And this is probably where we're going to have a lot of questions. And certainly if we have the answers for them, we will be able to provide them. But we really want to talk a lot about rebates and credits for residential customers. The Washington Post had a really good article about this earlier today about, how much reduction individuals could have in the overall output of greenhouse gases in the United States if everyone took advantage of these programs. Which the real question is, are people going to know about these? Are people going to be aware of these? Are people going to take advantage of them? But they're all kind of broken up into different types of programs. If you're talking about tax credits, you have the residential clean energy credit, you have the energy efficiency home improvement credit, and then you have the new energy efficiency home credit. Those are those tax credits. And there's rebates. That's where you don't have to wait to have to like get that written off of your taxes. That would include the High Efficiency Electric Home Rebate Act, or HERA, or the Homeowner Managing Energy Savings, or HOMES rebate program. So you should all be excited. There are going to be more. I guess HOMES is an acronym. HERA is, I don't know what they call that because because the acronyms only apply if it spells out a word. I can't remember what HERA would be. That's another phrase. Probably somebody is out there screaming because they know what it is. There's also the Home Energy Performance-Based Whole House Rebates. So those are the
James,
ones. Yeah.
I just want to interrupt. I think there's a typo on the slide that 2 and 3 are the same program. I accidentally put both of them in there. So it's
Okay.
just one. Sorry, it's just the homes program. Yeah.
Okay. Well, so yeah, that's just a continuation of that rebate program. Okay. Yeah. Sorry about that. Next slide, please. Okay. All right. The residential clean energy credit. This provides a tax credit for the purchase of residential clean energy equipment. Who qualifies for that in Missouri would be homeowners. There are some states where renters would be eligible for this, but that is not how the law works in Missouri. This credit covers 30% of the cost of equipment through 2032, 26% in 2033, 22% in 2034. And they are going to, and then there's going to be step downs from then on out. I believe that these credits have a goal and they're going to be in continuation until those goals are met. So what does this cover? Next slide, please. Okay, this can include solar rooftop and solar water heaters. And obviously that is also going to include ground mounted solar as well. That discount is 30%. That start date is 2023. I can tell you as an example though, I'll give you an example. I just put solar panels on my roof last year. I will be able to be eligible for that 30% discount for the 2022 taxable year. Small scale wind, you don't see much of that, especially in residential neighborhoods, but that will provide a tax credit of 30%. Same with battery storage. So if you're looking at being able to put some storage in your house, that's going to be 30%. Fuel cell property expenditures, that's 30%. And geothermal heat pumps are 30% as well. All those start date in this year, 2023. Next slide, please. And more information about this, a taxpayer may carry forward the unused amount of the credit to reduce tax liability in future years. So if you are not able to, use all of that to benefit your tax liability this year, you might be able to do it. Like if say you don't have a tax liability this year, but you did make the investment, then you could certainly apply that to a future year. Again, to reiterate, you cannot claim a tax credit if you're a renter and your landlord installs a solar system, since you must be the owner to claim that tax credit. I don't know if we see a lot of situations where we have landlords investing in solar for their tenants, but that certainly would be good if we were able to get some examples of that. The fuel cell credit is 30% of costs up to a maximum credit of $500 for each half kilowatt of capacity. All right. Do residential, home.
James, there's a question in the chat says, do residential projects qualify for the adders?
Yeah, that is from Carlo Miave. Hi, Carlo. The adders, where did we talk about that? Can we go back a little bit? I guess I think I want to know what he means by adders. Where'd that go? Oh,
Oh, it went away.
where'd it go? Okay, it went away. Oh no, domestic content adders.
This is Andrew with Renew Missouri.
Oh, hi,
I
Andrew.
answered that. And I thought my answer would show up, but I think it dismissed
It's
the
in the
question.
chat.
Do you want
I
to go
think
ahead and answer it for everybody?
I believe the answer is yes. I believe there's a domestic adder. So if certain components of the solar system are domestic, that qualifies for an adder. If you're within certain zones, there's like low-income communities and energy community zones. Those can overlap, and those each have an adder associated with them. So yes, I believe the answer is yes. The ITC adders can be used residentially.
Okay, that's good. Oh, and Steve O'Rourke is saying no.
Well,
He
Steve
only
may
for
know
commercial-
better.
Only for commercial projects.
Okay.
Yeah, and then okay. And yeah, and some the anonymous attendee was talking about US content is having bonuses on there. Yeah, there is, that is true. On a lot of these that we're going to be talking about, there are going to be, maybe not necessarily right away, but there are going to be included later benefits, added benefits if you are if you are using domestic equipment, domestic made equipment. Can we go back to, were we done with the solar part?
Yeah, it was pretty much, you covered everything. We can go
Oh,
back
I
to that.
covered everything.
Yeah,
Okay, good.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. So then there's the energy efficiency home improvement credit. And by the way, just in case, and this is mainly for the lawyers on the call, we do have the statutory location for these. We do have citations for this. So we're not just making this up. So what does this energy efficiency home improvement credit do? It provides a tax credit for homeowners who make energy efficiency upgrades, retrofits their home. Homeowners qualify for this. Renters can qualify for this. However, it needs to be clear that this is for residences. This is not going to be for vacation homes or investment properties. But I think if you are a renter, if you get equipment added to your house, you can take advantage of that. What does this credit cover? Up to $3,200 annually in tax credits to lower the cost of energy efficiency upgrades by up to 30%, with limits for each type of improvement, which we will get to here in a moment. This credit is going to be available for qualifying properties to be installed or placed in service on or after January 1st, 2023, which is where we are now, and before January 1st, 2033. So 10-year period there. Next slide, please. Limits. Okay, so this is like where we got to start doing math, right? The maximum total yearly energy efficiency home improvement credit. Because, right now when you look at I can certainly look at my home, or you can look at your home, and you can say, well, how much of this can I do? Can I do my whole house? But it looks, so really you're going to be looking at, having that capped, and that isn't going to include the building envelope, which is there is a $1,200 aggregate yearly tax credit maximum for all building envelope components, which we will talk about more on the next slide. And there is a $2,000 aggregate yearly tax credit maximum for all residential energy property. See the next slide. Speaking of which, next slide, please. So here we go. The item for building envelope components and labor not included includes home energy audits, exterior doors, insulation materials or systems, and air sealing materials or systems, 30% of cost, exterior windows and skylights. And that's where you get these credits there. The energy property, that would include energy, central air, natural gas, propane or oil water heaters, natural gas, propane or oil furnaces or hot water boilers, panel boards, sub-panel boards, branch circuits and feeders, electric or natural gas heat pumps, water heaters, electric or natural gas heat pumps, biomass stoves or boilers. So essentially, like what I think how you need to look at that is that there are going to be certain things about your structure of your house that part of that is available. And then other parts of it are the equipment that help provide power and energy and heating and air conditioning in your house. The air HVAC, heat pumps, that sort of thing. That's kind of considered energy property with building envelope if you need help kind of distinguishing what the difference between those are. Next slide, please. Other qualification, the home must be in the United States and owned and used by the taxpayer as their principal residence, right? Again, that is not something you can do for like your house or your condo at the lake. Credits are not available when the improvements are made to homes not used as a residence by the taxpayer. Sorry. For example, landlords cannot use credits to improve homes that they rent or they don't live there themselves. And of course, residency is, the Treasury regulations have, determinations about, where your mail goes, where, if it's near your place of employment. The state of Missouri has kind of a more defined, kind of more undefined definition of residence. It's kind of like what your intention is. It's just kind of where your mind is, but that's going to be a little more stringent from regulatory purposes. Next slide, please. Limits to energy efficiency home improvement credit does not apply to used products. So this is only going to be for new products. The credits are not, so as opposed to some of that with the solar panels and with some of those other clean energy equipment, this is not going to carry over to the next year if the taxpayer has insufficient tax liability. So if you put a bunch of money into energy efficiency but you don't owe taxes on your income, then you might just lose that for good. So you would almost want to kind of time your energy efficiency improvements to when you know that you're going to owe taxes. So that's another critical thing to keep in mind. You will only be eligible for this the year the property is installed. In regards to building envelope components, that is not going to include labor costs. I think we already mentioned that in the previous slide. But when we're talking about energy property items, such as installing that equipment that's providing the heat or the air or the power to your house, that will include labor costs. This is not applicable to new construction, but it is applicable to renovations. And we will be getting to the new construction credits, rebates, here in a minute. Next slide, please. So new energy efficiency homes credit. This is where this would come in. We're getting a lot of questions. Oh yeah, and actually some of this is, we will have to get to that. Don't let those go anywhere. Those are all good. Okay. Well, let me just read them now. Let me just read some of them now because I think some of them are so labor requirements to qualify for full ITC for investment tax credits or production tax credits projects must satisfy the Treasury Department labor requirements. All wages for construction, alteration, and repair for the first 5 years of the project for the ITC and the first 10 years of the PTC must be paid at the prevailing rates of that location. Yeah, there are prevailing wage requirements. I think we talk about that in one of these slides later on, but that is something that is going to be something that is critical, that you are using prevailing wage rates for that. Okay, that's good. Thanks, Jeff. So the energy efficiency homes credit that provides a tax credit for the construction of new energy efficient homes is going to be available from this year to 2032, so about 10 years. It's a tax credit for the home builder. And it provides $2,500 for new homes meeting Energy Star standards, $5,000 for certified zero energy ready homes. For multifamily, the base amounts are $500 per unit for Energy Star and $1,000 per unit for zero energy ready homes for multifamily projects. For that multifamily, the base amount can increase 5 times as the prevailing wage requirements are met. Again, that's where that prevailing wage is coming in to make sure that that the labor costs are going to be robust and that it's actually contributing to the overall economy. I think is the intention there. Okay. Next slide, please. And then there is HERA, the High Efficiency Electric Home Rebate Act. What our understanding is that Missouri is going to be allocated a little over $75 million for this particular rebate. So we're talking about rebates now. And this is going to be, what does this do? It is going to be a point of purchase rebate for electric efficient appliances. These grants are going to go through the state energy office. That would be like the division of energy here, as well as tribal entities to develop and implement a high efficiency electric home rebate program. You can use 20% of funding for administrative cost planning tech assistance. So 20% of that $75 million, or it's around $15 million, can go to just generally running that program. It's not available yet. Like what we're going to get into probably pretty soon is that a lot of these details are not available yet because we're still waiting on guidance from the federal government because they've not promulgated their rules or regulations. But the things we do know, which are in the law itself, the qualifying people for this particular rebate are residential and multifamily customers, provides 50% of the cost for incomes 80 to 150% of area median income, and 100% of the cost for incomes for 80% of the area median income and below. And the rebate covers 100% of costs covered for 80% of the area median income and below, as well as a $14,000 cap per household. Next slide, please. So that example, this $14,000 cap, if you want to put in, like just general appliances like a stove or range or an oven or clothes dryer, that would be $840. Heat pump water heater would be $1,750 for the rebate amount. Heat pump, which I know that there is a lot of controversy about, but that is like one of the big things that the IRA is going to try to be pushing our heat pumps. That's $8,000. So that's going to be the bulk of this, majority of where this money could go. Insulation, air sealing, and ventilation. Excuse me, I should have gotten some water before I started talking. This is going to be a long 35 minutes. That's going to be $1,600. Electric wiring is $2,500, and electric load service center upgrades. Excuse me, give me a second here. Okay, I think I'm better. That's $4,000. Let's see what we got. Are we going to talk about cars at some point? Yes, Anna, we are going to talk about cars. That's coming up. Phyllis, is tankless electric water heaters included in this? I think so. Can anyone confirm that? I believe they are. Andrew or Tori, do you know?
I think they are.
Yeah, I think they are.
But
we'll get
yes,
we'll look into it.
The efficient ones, that is.
Right. I think they're going to have to qualify. I think they're going to have to like be a certain type.
It has to meet a efficiency standard.
Excuse me. Okay. Let's see. We got. Okay. Next slide, please. Okay, so there's the home energy performance-based whole house rebates, the HOMES program. Another $75 million coming here. What does this do? It awards grants to state energy offices to develop a whole house energy savings retrofit program that will provide rebates to homeowners and aggregators for whole house energy savings. States can use up to 20% for planning, administrative, or technical assistance. When is it available? It's not available yet. It's not been awarded to state energy offices yet. Again, still waiting for rules and regulations there. Who qualifies? Low-income households qualify. That earns 80% or less than the area median income. Moderate income households also qualify. That is that same 80 to 150% of the AMI. What does this cover? It covers retrofits ranges from $2,000 to $4,000 for individual households and up to $400,000 for multifamily buildings. So that is that it might be a really good deal for like people who are developing multifamily low income housing. It's up to $2,000 for retrofits reducing energy use by 20% or more, and up to $4,000 for retrofits saving 35% or more. That is for the individual households, just to make sure that's clear. That's maximum rebates both for retrofits of low and moderate income homes. Also, while Missouri would be eligible for 4.3 billion, that's the overall amount is 4.3 billion, but Missouri would be entitled to that almost 76 million. Next slide, please. Here we go. Here are the vehicles, in case somebody was asking about those. So let's see here. So we're going to be talking about clean vehicle credit, previously owned vehicle credit, and the alternative fuel vehicle refueling property credit. All right, those are the three different kinds of tax credits we're going to be talking about here. Next slide, please. Okay. What does the clean vehicle credit do? It creates a tax credit to purchase new electric vehicles. These are going to be for vehicles placed in service in 2023, 2032. Rebate requirements. There's going to be, critical mineral requirements, battery component requirements. We don't list it here, but there are also going to be requirements on where these vehicles are made. There's going to have to be a certain amount of domestic components to these. Actually, the IRS has a list of vehicles that have been submitted by the manufacturer that have been approved for this. So you can go to the IRS website. You could just type in IRS electric vehicles, and it will tell you exactly which ones are eligible for this. But you are able to get maximum credits of up to $7,500. But there are going to be certain conditions to that. Next slide, please. There is a income qualification for that. If you're single, you can't make more than 150,000. If you file as head of household, that's 225,000. If you're married and filed jointly, that's 300,000. Or if you're married and filed separately, that's going to still be dealt with the same as your single, as far as your single status. So, this is going to be to try to encourage people who are not necessarily in the upper crust of society. They feel like they should be able to get electric vehicles without having to take advantage of these. There's also, and I'm not sure we get to this in another slide or not, but there are also going to be limitations on the amount that you can spend or the value of an EV. I want to say any vehicle over $80,000 it doesn't qualify for this either. Next slide, please. Okay, yeah. These are some of the other requirements for this. It cannot be a car acquired for resale. That's gonna be a different credit. Must be manufactured by a qualified manufacturer. That's where that list about domestic production is going to come in so handy. So that's why you want to go to that website and look at that. It must meet the definition of a motor vehicle. So you're not going to be able to get this tax credit for a golf cart or a lawnmower, which you do have electric versions of that, but I would not expect that you would be able to get $7,500 for a tractor, as an example. So they must have a gross vehicle weight rating of less than 14,000 pounds. So again, you're not talking about heavy equipment. You're not talking about 18-wheelers and that sort of thing. Must be powered to a significant extent by a electric vehicle motor with a battery capacity of 7 kilowatts hour or more, and must be capable of being recharged from an external source of electricity. And finally, must have its final assembly made in North America. So that is, again, those are, to try to help bolster up economic conditions in this country, as far as what that is trying to do, other than just encouraging people to buy clean energy vehicles. Next slide, please. What else do we know about this? Yeah, okay. So the credit limitations on this is going to be based on the suggested retail price and not the actual price you paid. So if you're able to negotiate a car dealer down, that is not going to be what this is based on. It's going to be based on what is the sticker price. Vehicle credit is claimed in the tax year that the vehicle is placed in service. The credit is not refundable and cannot be carried forward. It is going to be something that's available to you when you buy the car. Starting in 2025, batteries cannot contain critical minerals extracted, processed, or recycled by a foreign entity of concern, which I guess we're going to have like certain countries that we're not going to be getting those materials from. Again, the mineral battery capacity is 7 kilowatt hours. And then starting in 2024, not this year, but next year, car buyers can transfer the credit directly to dealers at the point of sale so that can directly reduce the purchase price. So the hope is that, you know, instead of it being a tax credit, it'll just be more of a rebate when people buy that vehicle. Next slide, please. Credit for previously owned clean vehicles. This is, I mean, pretty self-explanatory. It creates a tax credit to purchase pre-owned clean vehicles. It must be vehicles placed in service between 2023 and 2032. The total maximum credit is $4,000 or 30% of the vehicle price, whichever is less, and no additional manufacturing or sourcing requirements. So this is just for pre-owned. And I think we might, do we have another slide on this that has some more information on this? I think we do. Okay, yeah, again, here's who qualifies for that particular pre-owned clean vehicle. It's slightly lower by about certainly it's so single 75,000, head of household 112, married filed jointly is 150, and married filed separately 75. Next slide, please. Yeah, okay, so here's the other things that are going to be required of this particular provision is that the model year of the vehicle is at least 2 years earlier than the calendar year in which the taxpayer acquires the vehicle. The purchasing taxpayer cannot be the original user of the vehicle. The vehicle must be sold by a dealer, so this is not a buyer, this is not a buyer to buyer kind of thing. And the sales price must be $25,000 or less and can only be claimed once per vehicle. So we can't keep getting this credit by selling it over and over again. And an individual can only claim it once per 3 years. So those are some other limitations on the previously owned clean vehicle part of this bill. Next slide, please. And then there's the alternative fuel vehicle refueling property credit. This is not electric vehicles. This is a tax credit for alternative fuel vehicle refueling and charging property in low and income in rural areas. I shouldn't say it's not electric. It is electric. But it also can include ethanol, natural gas, hydrogen, biodiesel, and other kind of forms of natural or kind of alternative gas or alternative fuel, excuse me. So if you have any kind of vehicle that runs on those types of fuel sources, you're in good shape. Same time period, 2023 to 2032. Consumers and business owners who equip their space to accommodate alternative fuel vehicles who are eligible for this. So I think they're trying to encourage fleet vehicles with this, but it must be located in low income or rural areas defined by the Bureau of the Census. There are very specific areas that are defined as what is rural and what is low income or low income. So that's going to be very specific on where you can do this. This rebate covers 6% of the cost for businesses. It's limited to $100,000 credit per item of property for businesses, 30% for individuals, limited to $1,000. Businesses can claim a 30% credit for projects meeting prevailing wage and registered apprenticeship requirements. So that's going to be, if you're paying a prevailing wage at your business, there's going to be better opportunities for you there. And direct pay is available to tax exempt organizations. So this can be turned into a rebate if you are a nonprofit, like let's say you're a rural co-op or you're a rural school district. That would be when you're wanting to have your bus fleet that's run off of these kinds of things. That's where that would come into effect. Next slide, please. So when you look at like what the White House has calculated as the benefits to Missouri of these programs, let's start where we already are. 2021, there were 54,397 workers that were employed in the clean energy market. That includes wind technicians, solar installers, people who are working in energy efficiency jobs. That's what those jobs are. It's a decent number. The estimate is that this will bring 6.6 billion more in investment in large scale clean power generation and storage to Missouri between now and the next 7 years. That's what the White House is estimating that benefits this state's going to be. If so, with Missouri being home to 542,000 small businesses, commercial building owners can receive a credit of up to $5 per square foot to support energy efficiency improvements to deliver lower utility bills. And other programs that will benefit small businesses include a tax credit covering 30% of the cost of installing low-cost solar power and of purchasing clean trucks and vans for commercial fleets. So there are going to be a lot of opportunities, not just for residential customers, but also for business customers as well. Next slide, please. So what now? As I keep saying, and I'll continue reiterating, we have the law. We have a bill that's been signed and it's in effect, but all of these are being administered by a variety of different agencies. You have the EPA, you have the USDA, you have a lot of Department of Energy is going to be involved with a lot of this as well. Every time those agencies get money to administer to states or administer to individuals, there are lots of rules and regulations that are going to have to be promulgated in order for that money to go to the right place, to make sure that the purpose of the law is being served and to make sure that you are reducing on waste and fraud. Even when you spend a lot of time working on those rules and regulations, you cannot avoid that. It is unavoidable in some cases where people are always going to try to game that system, but try to do the best you can. I can tell you as an example, USDA, on their money that's going to be available for rural electric cooperatives, we're not expecting rule making or even propose regulations on this until the end of this month. And you're talking about that being 6 months after this bill was passed. We're looking at even further down the way, the summer, and getting more rules later in 2023. I mean, if we're being honest, and let's be honest here, I think the timing of this from the government is for this money to start coming into the economy and people starting to see benefits of it in 2024. And I think you all know why. I think that there is going to be a desire by the administration that signed this bill that their bet is that people are going to like getting these rebates, they're going to like getting these tax credits. And so when they get those, they want to have that tied into a presidential election year. I'm not saying that's anything official, but I'm just saying that would be my guess on how that's all being timed out. So you're not probably going to see a lot of benefit from this. You'll be able to see, I think, tax credit benefits from this year, but a lot of these rebates, I do not think you're really realistically going to see until 2024. And even though that's not what they're saying, I think that is going to be what is designed. So like with homes and HERA, we're talking about here, that won't be broadly available until the second half of 2023 or later. I think that's intentional. I think there's some intention to that. Now, having said that, I also think it does take a lot of work to get these rules and regulations out there. I think that there is a lot of public comment, a lot of work that's having to be done between Congress and these agencies to make sure that the intent of this legislation is being done. So that is also considerations too. I'm not trying to be completely and totally cynical here. Yes, again, the DOE must issue rules, but it's not just the DOE. It is also USDA, it is also EPA. And those are going to have to be followed by states because a lot of this money is going to be going to the states. If there are tax credits for this, it's going to have to be that these entities that are going to be trying to take advantage of these tax credits are going to have to make sure that accounting rules are put together that are proper for this. So there's a lot that needs to be done, but this is kind of our best overview of it right now. Next slide, please. So how to get ready for this? Even though some of these programs are not available, there are still ways that you can prepare your home for the perks of discounted electrification products and installations. You can start by looking at what needs to be replaced right now. You can start by looking at, like, does your car need to be replaced? I certainly know I'm in the market for an electric vehicle right now. And so I've been doing a lot of research on this and trying to figure out when that's available. You can already start talking about getting a local energy auditor to look at your house and saying what needs to be fixed or what might be available to fix. We've got some note here about Pearl certification. We'll get to that in a moment. Those auditors will be able to tell you what needs to be, like, how energy efficient your home is, what needs to be fixed. And then that involves also getting a contractor in your area. But we're also intending, Renew Missouri is also intending to, like, put out a lot of information about about these benefits through our website, through our emails, through our podcast. So we are going to try to be constantly updating people about that as the year goes along. Next slide, please. So yeah, when we talk about auditors and we talk about contractors, because that is kind of a bewildering, frustrating process. And one of the things that Renew Missouri is trying to do to make that easier, we have teamed up with a group called Pearl Certification, and to create a group, to create a program called Renew Missouri Homes. This is a project that we kind of took over from the state of Missouri that had been working on its green building registry. That was going to be a place where you could look up houses that had certain designations for energy efficiency and energy savings. That is something that we've been able to take over and adopt, and that we're trying to work through this particular system. We are working with Pearl as well as the state of Missouri on this. That's why it's a public-private partnership. The program is going to connect homeowners with vetted professionals. That includes the auditors and the contractors to help design and achieve home performance goals, which increase a home's comfortability and value. And then that will also be able to provide a certification. The good thing about Pearl is they're already doing certification work with Ameren and Evergy and Liberty through the Pay As You Save program. So we're hoping that if you are taking advantage of some of those energy efficiency programs through those utilities, that you will already be getting this certificate. So it's not going to be any extra work for you. But this is also going to be really critical when the homes program is available, because it is going to require a third-party certification. So if you want your home to be qualified for that, you're going to have something like this from a third party. So that's our pitch for that. So if you have any questions about that, we do. Well, I can tell you, Tori, who is wonderfully running this this presentation, is the person to talk to there. She and I are working on this together for the organization. So next slide, please, with that pitch out of the way. And then that also goes into this concept, this new system called Green Door. That is a homeowner portal that lets you access vetted contractors, train real estate agents to understand how to sell and market high performance features in a home investment plans to track desired energy updates. Because I mean, the thing is with this is, there's a lot of real estate agents out there. There are a lot of professionals out there who do this for a living. A lot of them do not know, like, why energy efficiency is important to a house. They do not understand what is the selling points of energy efficiency or energy savings to a house. Which ultimately, I think when you put in energy efficiency measures, you're increasing the value of the home, you're reducing the utility bill, you're making that home safer. So there are actually classes going on where real estate agents are being trained on that right now. We have information about those as well. So again, if you want to know how, if you're a contractor or a contractor, or you want to talk to real estate agents about getting more involved with this, this is the way to do it. Next slide, please. And so this is just kind of a taste of, I think we're going to, like, in the summer when we do our end of year CLE, we are going to talk a little bit about how state policymakers are going to be able to change the way electric utilities manage some of their programs, how they're generating their energy. We're not going to get into that today. We've only got 13 minutes left. So this is going to be a whole other thing that we're going to try to tackle in June of this year. But we just want to let you know that the IRA has the ability to have a lot more impact on those kind of parties as well. And so this is really just more focused on individuals. Next slide, please. So that's where we get to the questions. Okay. Oh my gosh, let's go through all of these, shall we? Let's see.
Sure. I think something that we should clarify is like if someone had bought a, efficient product in 2022, is that applicable for the tax credit? Like, what is the timing for?
Yeah.
I think that we need to clarify that point.
Do you want to do that, or are you asking me to do that? Here, hold on. No, I haven't. I haven't. Don't worry. Let me bring it up here. Yeah, when we say, okay, so yeah, so when we say a tax credit is available for 2023, it means that you file that credit next year in 2024 when you do your 2023 taxes. Is that what you mean, Tori?
Yeah, that's what I mean. And I think I also want to say that, if you bought an appliance in 2022, there are some other tax credits available. They're not as much as this one, but I would encourage you to go to the Energy Star website. They have a lot of good resources on what kind of tax credits you can take from your efficient appliances.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So I'm going to go to the top here about 12:30. Our anonymous attendee said specifically, I think they were saying like, we don't want to make it look like we're anti-wind or anything. We're just trying to find solutions that don't decrease the efficiency of wind farms. I mean, yeah, look, that to me is going to specifically have to deal with how investor-owned utilities are getting approval for those projects through the Public Service Commission. I can tell you that when Renew Missouri has been involved with, like, let's say Ameren building their wind farm in Northeast Missouri, the Missouri Department of Conservation was intervened in that case. Office of Public Counsel were very direct and very clear that want to make sure that wildlife mitigation, dealing with bird migration issues were going to be addressed. They were addressed. It was resolved without going to hearing. I think it was addressed in a settlement. And I know now there are still some issues remaining in that those wind farms sometimes do not run at times of night during the night because of concerns with bats, concern with birds, and there's a question about whether or not those wind farms are being fully effective. Yeah, certainly I know that there's technology that's being added, like noise that only birds and bats can hear that will help direct them away from turbines. But certainly I know that trying to make them efficient, it is, we don't really have any perfectly efficient form of energy generation, unfortunately. Nuclear power generators, they're down, routinely for operation and maintenance. Same with coal, same with gas. Those are things that we just have to live with, and hopefully we just have a good mix to deal with. Cheryl Markham recently purchased a new parsonage for her church and paid for an energy audit of the facility, hoping to benefit from IRA funding. Cheryl, was that this year or last year? I don't know which year that was, so it's hard to say. What I just see, Steve O'Rourke's asking, are we providing a copy of the slide deck? Yes, I can answer that question. We are. So yes, we are going to be doing that. Hold on, let me go back. Sorry, I'm not doing a very good job of dealing. Okay, so someone asked about Citizen Electric Cooperative. We've only talked to companies in Missouri. Sorry. I think we talked about Carlo's answer. Wildwood is currently writing. Okay, that is a little off topic, but I know that I have talked to some of our supporters about the ordinances there. I know MOSIA has been involved with that. MOSIA would be the group that I would talk to about that. And certainly if there is a concern that those solar legislations are going to be harmful to the industry, we would be willing to look at that and provide support opposing that. So, okay, Steve O'Rourke kind of dealt with that.
James, I think we're almost at time.
Or almost a time. Well, I'm just going to go through these and make sure I can answer these questions.
I guess we have a few more minutes. We'll
We
be
have a
fine.
few more minutes. Would a person who leases a property be eligible to receive these credits? I'm moving to a retirement village that leases their homes. Pearl, my answer to that would be I would talk to the management of that retirement village and certainly encourage them to take advantage of this. And I think they should be able to get some benefit from this. I mean, certainly if you want to reach out to us, we can talk to them as well. I think that like certainly a retirement village that has a lot of people living there, that have a lot of meters there, they should they should be looking to try to keep those costs down because a lot of their residents are all on fixed income. So Bill Rush added something about good adder citation. All right.
James, there's a good question. Someone asked if we can double dip on rebates and tax credits, getting Ameren and federal tax credit or high efficiency electric heat pump, or asking if, how can we stack those rebates or tax credits?
You want to take that one, Tori?
Sure, I can try my best.
Yes.
So we have been looking into this, and I think we as a group probably need to do a little bit more research on this, but my understanding is that you cannot double dip on rebates.
Right.
Like you can't get a rebate for the same appliance from the homes program and the HERA program. And then as for the utilizing tax credits and rebates, I think we're still kind of looking into how that's going to work, because we have to identify do some more research on that. So James, I don't know if you want to add more to that, but
No, I think, yeah, I mean, we will continue working on that, but I do believe that they are not things that are stackable on that. I actually saw an email. Are there credits for installing charging stations? There aren't under the IRA. I believe there is under the infrastructure bill, and I think that is actually being administered through DNR, the Department of Natural Resources, Carlo. So I think right now their period for getting benefits to install those is closed, but in the fall of 2023 they should reopen. So that is coming through another type of. This is not coming from the IRA for electric charging stations. That is going to be coming from the infrastructure bill. Someone asked a question real quick about list bills Renew Missouri is supporting, opposing. We do have that list. I have not sent that out publicly yet because we're still waiting for the legislative session to end, but we do have our list that we have. I can certainly send that out to this list as well. So that's no problem. We are keeping track of a number of bills. Some we're opposed to, some we support, some we're just monitoring. Let's see what else.
James, I wanted to just clarify that some of the items that are being asked if they're included in the credit or rebate, rebates programs are really for energy, electric products, not gas products. And that's, to incentivize people to adopt more electric products in their home. And then the tax credit, as I have up here on the screen, that's really for, as you can see, gas products are included in that. So just to clarify that, and that those listed items we'll be sending this out, so you can also look to see, oh, this is listed or this is not.
Okay. Yeah. Again, some of those questions we will be sending out this this PowerPoint, and you will be able to have that as a reference. And so in regards to Pearl certification on the need for auditors, is there a workforce development angle? Yes, there is, Keith. We have been working a lot with the Missouri Botanical Gardens, who does a lot of training for auditors. As an example, there are no auditors in the Southwest Missouri area right now. So we are working with City Utilities and Liberty Empire in Southwest Missouri to do classes through Missouri State and Missouri Southern to provide that. So yes, we are well aware of that there is a need to train people for this, and that is part of our work, is making sure that there are people doing that. Being an energy auditor is not very lucrative. Unfortunately, so a lot of people we don't have a lot of people doing that work. But we are trying to like make sure people are able to get certification for so they can do it like on the side as like a part-time job.
Also, if you know of any auditors who want to build their business, please reach out to me, and we would love to talk to them about getting the Pearl program network. So
Yeah. Okay, so I've tried to answer everything I can. I got it down as 128. Again, just if you are interested in more of this, I mean, like I said, I wanted to get this out because it's been 6 months since this bill was signed, and just trying to get like some basic bare bones information out there. We are going to make this available, but you can go to renewmo.org and sign up for our newsletter. We are going to continue trying to provide information about this. We're going to continue trying to do more webinars like this. Our summer mailer that we usually do that has usually information about our legislative efforts is going to really just be about this and trying to be a guide for people. So we're really hoping that we can make this more of a, more of an ongoing thing, because we very much want people to take advantage of this. And we believe that this can offer a lot of benefits to the state of Missouri. So with that, and also if you're a lawyer and you need a certification for this, please let me know. Just email me at james@renewmo.org and I will get you that certification. Please let me know if you need that for Missouri or Kansas or both, and I will get that to you. Again, it is really funky how we have 2 different hours for each, but I will make sure that you could get credit for that. So with that, I want to wish you a good Friday afternoon. I want to wish you a good weekend, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks.